Ladies and gentlemen, lots of links made from last episode, and the Jonin team Kakashi formed to retrieve Little Miss Hinata Hyuga. While the stories slow down at the moment, we're going to explore a little bit more from this day in the rewrite. But going back to the Aftermath video, there is one detail that I forgot to mention. It wasn't because it's not important, simply that my direction has gone slightly off from the original plan. And that is that Ibiki was also captured. As a Jonin, the collapse of a building wouldn't have been enough to keep him down. However, upon a full search of the rubble, he was not found. So he is now presumed captured in light of all the other captures that occurred on that day. Just as before, we're continuing directly off the conclusion from last episode. And away we go. Appearing in their home, Minato gives Naruto no time to adjust to the changed surroundings. Rounding on him, Minato asks Naruto why he was with Orochimaru, and perhaps more importantly, why was he hiding at all? Naruto shrugs and says that Minato probably wouldn't have liked him to see that if he didn't hide. He tries to shrug off the heat by blaming the Konoha 9 for making a big stink about his Chunin promotion. Minato emphasizes to him how important it was that even from his own son, the Hokage needs to keep secrets. They live in a world of spies, and the less information is given out, the safer the nation, the village can be. Naruto furrows his brow and looks back at Minato, asking why he would be okay with resurrecting the third Hokage. Putting it together in his head, Naruto realizes Orochimaru had to desecrate the grave of a previous Hokage. Shaking his head in disgust at that idea, Naruto refocuses on his dad and asks him why again. Kneeling to match eye level with Naruto, Minato tells him that sometimes even the most powerful people have to do not so good things. Minato wishes he had the knowledge already so he wouldn't have to order such things. But even he was not all-knowing, and luckily for everyone involved, he had someone like Orochimaru to do this dirty work. Naruto points out that he wasn't even very happy with Orochimaru, despite all this honorless work he was made to do. Minato explains that he wasn't happy with Orochimaru for involving Naruto. Shaking his head, Naruto explains that he was mad at Orochimaru before that, upon dispelling the jutsu. Sighing, Minato tells him that sometimes in the heat of the moment he might sound angry when really he's just excited. The information he was getting from the third Hokage was extremely pivotal in the great mysteries of the world. Orochimaru stopped the jutsu for no discernible reason. That's why he was so upset. Shaking his head again, Naruto insists that he didn't need to treat Orochimaru that way, after all this work he's done for Minato. Smiling lightly, Minato asks if an apology to Orochimaru would split the difference. Deciding in the moment that Minato was way harsher than he needed to be about the situation, Naruto turns away from his dad and tells him that he needs to go for a walk to cool down. Minato lets him leave. Perhaps a breather from the intensity would help ease his young mind. Naruto doesn't get 2 blocks from his home before crossing paths with Shikamaru. Shikamaru calls him a knucklehead for just taking off like that. Now, all of the Konoha 9 were currently on the prowl to look for him. They were supposed to wait there for their new war missions, and now it's all been tossed aside solely for Naruto. Naruto asks why bother, citing Neji's insensitive remarks about him getting Chunin just because of who his dad is. Reluctantly, Shikamaru sighs and asks whether Naruto can actually blame Neji for having the thought. The power of a Jinchuriki is a lot more dangerous with more agency in the field, as is granted by Chunin and Jonin promotions. Especially for the war, there's hardly a disadvantage. Heck, cut off by Naruto, Shikamaru braces for his rant that he didn't receive any bias. If he had bias, then Minato could have easily just promoted him without ever taking part in the tournament. That is what bias is, right? Shikamaru shrugs, telling Naruto that it's just impossible one way or the other for them to know for sure whether his dad had bias in the decision making. But if anything, being reasonable, wouldn't Minato fight for Naruto's promotion? And given how strong Neji is, can't Naruto understand for a second that Neji is projecting? Shaking his head, Naruto tells Shikamaru that he can't ever understand the ridicule Naruto faces simply for existing in this stupid village. He shouldn't have to put up with his peers turning on him, or worst case, being treated so delicately as if he were to shatter in the wind. Shaking his head, Shikamaru suggests to Naruto that he's just victimizing himself. Things aren't as bad as Naruto's making it out to be. At this point, Naruto slumps, letting his guard down, and tells Shikamaru that he's done. Go back to the teachers and tell them he's just done. If he wanders off and disappears, then the village will be better for it anyway. Further down the street, Naruto spots Rock Lee and Tenten running towards him, pointing and yelling his name. Before Shikamaru can respond, Naruto's vanished with his flying Raijin back to his house. From his room, Naruto sees a present sitting on his bed with a note congratulating him on his promotion. Pulling the wrapping away reveals 2 more chakra kunai made special for Naruto. Clearly his dad had intended to give this to him earlier. A note is folded between the blades, and Naruto puts it aside before picking up the kunai. A knock at the door downstairs alerts him to perhaps more people looking for him. Pocketing the kunai, he tears his window open and flees into the woods behind his house. Hurtling through the forest, Naruto heads in an opposite direction from where Shikamaru found him. He'll stay off the streets as much as he can and just leave. Maybe Orochimaru will take him in. Maybe he should just become a nomad like his clan is. Even as the wind hits his face, he feels his eyes start to water. As he brings up an arm to brush them dry, he's suddenly forced to stop as Sakura intercepts him. She figures based on his direction that he just came from home where Ino likely is now. Despite being a prick, Neji was telling the truth about what his eyes saw. Was Naruto really so ashamed of himself that he'd willfully flee from further confrontations? Sakura asks him where he's going after he finishes brushing his face, and he replies that it just doesn't matter anymore. Sooner rather than later, he'll be out of everyone's hair, so it won't be a concern any longer. Stepping toward him, Sakura pushes Naruto and tells him he's not in everyone's hair. When was the last time she picked on him? She'll bludgeon him for being an idiot 1,000 times, but never for the fox that was put in him without choice. Naruto spends all of his time thinking about the people who hate him without even knowing him, but he's ignoring all the people who don't hate him. Even Neji's helping to find him. Sakura was sure that guy hated everyone. She encourages Naruto to stop and take a breath, and realize just how many friends he actually has. They're in plain sight. There's no reason why he would be blind to them. Calming for a few moments as a storm of indecision rages in his head, Naruto shakes his head and tells Sakura that it's just too late. He has no ill will towards her, but he does to so many others, and it's solely because of how they've treated him up to now. Everyone has a breaking point, and he's found his. He's not going to deal with this any longer, and if he sticks around, the fox might take control and hurt the few people he does care about. Sakura asks him where will he go then, if not with his friends. Not here. He'll go far away where he doesn't have to bother anyone else ever again. Sakura tells him no one can handle such solitude, feeling goosebumps going down her arms and legs as she realizes how serious he is. She's never really given him the time of day, but never would she wished for him to be truly alone. Hesitating in self-reflection about how much more she could have done to give him an ally, Sakura misses the chance to stop him. Throwing a kunai high over the trees, Naruto suddenly vanishes and reappears above the canopy. Throwing out a second kunai as he grabs the first, Naruto reappears beside the second and repeats the throwing motions. The act of teleportation through the air allows him to travel unbelievably quickly, leaving Sakura in his dust in seconds. He wonders to himself if that's how his dad gets around so quickly. The only part of the trick that's challenging is reorienting himself after teleporting to throw the following kunai in the correct direction again. Losing track of his bearings, Naruto suddenly finds himself crashing into the ground, splattering himself with mud as he lands in a rice field. Jiraiya scratches his head as he looks back towards the village. They'd been traveling for several days already. The village was impossibly far away and no longer in sight, but Jiraiya obviously knew its direction. Minato had sent him on a last-minute mission even as the war was meant to be unfolding. While he was away from the village, the Hokage would remain as its defender, therefore leaving the war to Orochimaru, Tsunade, and the Leaf Shinobi. It was odd timing, even for such an important mission. Turning to his team, Jiraiya also wonders why he was not sent alone, as he was accustomed to. "There's a spy in the Leaf," Jiraiya tells them at long last. "At least, that's the thought." He continues on to say that only those present will be privy to this information that he's divulging. Kneeling and leaning against a tree, Jiraiya looks out to the river beyond and sighs. "Shikaku, as head of one of the great clans, you are not allowed to take part in the war, but you can still take missions." He tells Shikaku that they are on the most important mission that the village has active. Shikaku keeps a leveled gaze at Jiraiya, likely well aware of what they were doing out here. Ko Hyuga stands beside Shikaku, stoic and silent. He was the only Anbu who fought and survived against Shisui as he headed to the stadium during the Chunin exams. He would recognize Shisui's face and chakra signal anywhere. Not to mention the natural ferocity that Hyuga and Uchiha have for each other. Should they meet Shisui again, Ko's very presence would boil Shisui's blood. Jiraiya tells them that they were handpicked by him for the most efficient completion to this mission. But due to the dangers presented in the days ahead, they might need some additional help. Pushing his glasses to the bridge of his nose, Kabuto carefully observes his teammates. Jiraiya tells them that Tsunade holds Kabuto in regards to skill equal to and possibly even better than Shizune. Choza was passed up as a contender due to his closeness to this mission. Officially, they are the four who will track down and rescue Choji Akimichi from the clutches of Shisui Uchiha. Across the river is the Land of Rain, where they will begin their search. It is no offense to the others that were taken, but Choji Akimichi is being given a higher priority than the others. Running across a wild field, Naruto sees a small creek and a forest across it ahead. He's been running for hours, and he's managed to successfully leave the village unperturbed. Via his very few treks to Orochimaru's lab, he was shown a hole in the village's security where Orochimaru often came and went without ever being spotted by guards. Legs burning, Naruto stops at the side of the creek and cups some water into his mouth. He wonders how long he'll have to run before he's untrackable by the village. Would he have to reach the country's border? That would take at least a few days at his maximum speed. He'd have to burn or cut away his dad's mark on his shoulder sooner rather than later, or all this travel time would be instantly undone. He found it odd that he had no urge to return to Orochimaru's lab. Perhaps even the friendliness offered by Orochimaru wasn't enough to keep him nearby. He just wanted to not have to think about the village or its people. A twig snaps from behind, and Naruto straightens. He turns around to behold what remains of the Konoha 12 standing behind him. Rock Lee, Sasuke, Neji, Ino, Sakura, Shino, Tenten, and Shikamaru all stand behind him. With Shino, they tracked his escape precisely to the point that they also found the hole in security and were able to follow him without being caught themselves. Though used to being in the wilderness, most of them look unsure of themselves to be beyond the village limits without a Jonin guide. Rock Lee, Shikamaru, Ino, Tenten, and Shino are shifting uncomfortably. Neji, Sasuke, and Sakura know where they stand and with purpose. Trying to ignore them, Naruto's about to leap across the creek when Sasuke appears in front of him and cuts off his trajectory. Shaking his head at him, Naruto tells Sasuke and everyone else that no one can stop him. At any moment, if he truly willed it, he could give in to the fox's constant efforts to escape. Then the fox would kill them all and be done with it. Sakura shakes her head at him. She knows that he's not got the cold soul that he's claiming to have. He's not so heartless so as to let the fox kill all his friends. "Friends!" Naruto exclaims incredulously, looking around at them all. He points at Shino and tells them that he can't even remember a time that Shino spoke one word to him. What kind of friend is that? Or Shikamaru, taking sides with Neji and trying to make him feel bad for trying his best to get Chunin and then actually getting it? Not to mention Neji himself, who seems to be on a one-person mission to hate everyone, and Naruto's no exception. Neji in this moment tells him he's a coward for running away from his problems, rather than face them. Naruto pretends day in and day out that he does not need the village to like him, and yet here he is running away from it. It was all a big lie just to appear tough. Naruto asks Neji what could his troubles possibly have ever been as a highborn of one of the most powerful houses in Konoha. He was born with innate talents and gifts, loved by his family, and encouraged to refine and grow his strength. Neji only didn't have friends because he was a prick, not because he was born to hatred. In the end, maybe they're just two sides of the same coin. Neji is stubborn because he's too loved, and Naruto's stubborn because he's just not loved enough. Both are as they are because of both extremes. Neji frowns at the characterization, bothered by his comparison to Naruto, and he falls quiet. Sasuke's looked down on him since their academy days, despite all the training Naruto's gotten. Sakura and Ino were awkward girls who seemed more interested in gossiping about Naruto behind his back than giving a simple good morning. What about Rock Lee, who's so interested in being his friend that he spends all his time training with a Jonin that'll actually spare time for him? And then there's Tenten. What about Tenten? She asks in return. I've never seen you as anything different than a classmate, an ally, and a friend. Our team was split up because Hinata was taken. But you never went out of your way to see how I was doing. You claim to want everyone to not hate you, but it just doesn't feel good to lose a friend to a kidnapping and have the only other one turn their back to you. Tenten used to have an issue understanding why anyone would ever judge him poorly, but the selfishness of not even asking how she was after Hinata was announced captured really made her feel alone. At the same time, no one saw what he did for her and Hinata in the Forest of Death. Maybe if Neji had seen that, he'd have a newfound respect for Naruto. Carrying two limp bodies while injured and poisoned for a few days would be enough to win anyone's loyalty. The idea that he had to fight a whole team on his own after they'd mercilessly beat up Hinata makes Tenten want to stand by his side. Neji's face turns down toward the ground as he contemplates this news. Even when the Fox took control of him during Phase 2.5, it didn't rock Tenten at all. She knew it was a possibility and admired Naruto for regaining control. Everything she's seen from him has taken the form of strength, honor, and loyalty. So what if random strangers in the village can only see the negative? She can see the positive, and Naruto radiates with it when he really tries. Rock Lee tells Naruto that he's always felt like he could relate to him. Unlike everyone else, possibly in the world, Lee can't access chakra. He felt like a cripple among gods by comparison when he was growing up. He's made fun of when people see him walking around on his hands, or when he's trying desperately hard to mold chakra and failing in front of a class of children years younger than him that can actually do it easily. Everything he does it to the max, as hard as he can, to even out his lacking skill with the normal people. He thought that if the two of them were ever put on the same team, it would be a happy day for Lee, to finally have someone who knows some of his pain of rejection. Shino shifts uncomfortably and tells Naruto that his bugs don't live in solitude. They're stronger when they work together, or when they have a synergistic relationship with another stronger creature. Naruto can accomplish both. If he can one day work with the Fox and work with the village, he can be at his happiest, his safest, his strongest. It's the bugs that are caught out alone that are snatched up by birds and much larger predators. Naruto's keeping himself at arm's reach from everyone around him. He's out in the open right now, like the lone bugs that are eaten by the birds. Shikamaru rubs the back of his neck as he had already tried to convince Naruto to stay. He tells him that he operates off of logic, and that can sometimes appear cold and detached. But nothing he's ever said to Naruto was ever meant as an attack. He apologizes for anything he said to offend Naruto, but never would he ever want him to leave the village. Not him. Above all else, not him. Sasuke tells him that they might not be brothers, but his mom helped raise them both. He hoped to grow stronger with Naruto as an ally. Shisui still had to answer for his crimes, and Sasuke hoped that Naruto would be right there with him for that showdown. Because if Sasuke loses the few connections he has left, there's a darkness in him that he's not sure he can control. Who cares what monster might lurk within Naruto? He's already lost his brother. He doesn't want to lose Naruto too. Ino opens her mouth to say something to him, but her only real interaction with him was at the start of the Chunin exams. He was right about the rest. They've only ever been acquaintances or classmates. Shaking his head at their efforts, Naruto puts his hands up in frustration that no one ever tried supporting him until just now, when he's snapped and turned his back on them. He's known all of them for most of his life. At no point did anyone decide to raise their hands in his defense. For being the Hokage and the strongest shinobi of the Leaf, his dad was oddly blind to the abuse of other villagers. But there's no way that none of them saw this abuse either, and yet no one ever told the villagers off. Sakura tells Naruto that if he tries to leave, she will fight him. Even if she doesn't stand a chance, she won't let him leave for anything less. Sasuke mirrors her sentiment and wonders how Naruto could fare against multiple opponents. Was it even worth it? Why did Naruto want to flee from the only source of love from the village? Naruto asks then that they'd prefer that he lived in the village only to constantly hate everything around him. No one should be fighting for this, Ino tells them, stunned that Sakura would even threaten violence, as if it were the only recourse. Glancing at Shikamaru for a second, Ino opens her mouth to continue, but he shakes his head vigorously at her. It's not her secret to share. Naruto wrestles a little bit with Sasuke in an attempt to shove him aside and properly leave. There's a sudden shout to Naruto, who false starts and nearly falls into the creek. Ignoring Shikamaru's protesting, Ino tells Naruto, "There's a second Jinchuriki in the village, a Leaf Shinobi." Stopping his struggling, Naruto turns to look at her in disbelief. Shaking his head, he tells her she's lying to him. Why would he be branded for hatred when this other one went completely undetected? Your father chose to publicize your being a host. He thought it was a badge of honor, Shikamaru tells him, pain in his voice at Ino's ignoring him. The other Jinchuriki's parents locked the Hokage into a promise of secrecy. Still in denial, Naruto waves them off and calls them liars. There was a moment in the competition that we thought the Sanbi would break free, Shikamaru mutters. The room got dark and everyone was terrified. These tailed beasts feed on fear. I'm the host for the three-tailed beast, Ino confesses. That's the end of today's episode. It took me like an hour to figure out the wording. I hope everyone's satisfied with the great reveal. This felt like an episode of Game of Thrones that had a really good end to the episode, and then the stuff that led up to that point gets overshadowed. Obviously, the secret was well kept, but now Ino's announced it to all of the Konoha 9. There is a lot of danger in such a public confession, even if it's amongst people she trusts. For Naruto's attempt to leave the village, I didn't want him to fight with everyone. All he's wanted in my rewrite is to be not just accepted, but liked by everyone. So I wanted him to be swayed with words before violence. And we've learned a bit more of complexity with Neji. Why is he helping at all if he's supposed to be an eternal prick? And let's not forget the Choji rescue team. They seem to be a little bit more stacked than the Hinata rescue team. That one was admittedly an intentional swerve ball. There has been a team of Anbu, Sanin, househeads, or special Jonin who typically do not take direct part in wars that have been assigned on these missions. Jiraiya is the only one who is normally a combatant in the war, and he is committing great haste to this mission. Of course, they're entering the Land of Rain, and we all know a few very famous and powerful ninja who run around there. For big reveals like this episode has, there's always a great fear in how the reveal is received. Their attempt to coerce Naruto into staying were failing, so this was all that Ino could think of to keep him from leaving. I could have revealed this during the Chunin exams, but I've actually had this moment carved out in my brain since the first 10-ish episodes. Once an idea's in your head for that long, you've a really hard time changing it. Onwards and upwards, as they say. Until Friday, the sky's the limit.